Our Caring Conversations groups are designed for those who have received a breast cancer diagnosis along with their caregivers. In these groups, we provide support, time to connect with one another, and a safe space to discuss our thoughts and feelings. We also provide a time for guest speakers that we have worked with and have brought in to discuss important topics that relate to individuals facing a breast cancer diagnosis and those that are supporting them. We welcome you to join us during these groups, which are held the last Wednesday of each month from 6 to 8 p.m. We begin each session by connecting with one another, and we have our social work team lead us through an activity. We then bring in our guest speaker, and sometimes our guest speaker joins us from the beginning, where they introduce a topic of conversation that connects to our focus. This video is just a recap of the discussions that we were having during our gratitude and growth conversations in January and February, and then leading up to our conversation in March. I wanted to give you just a little information about our conversation in March, where we welcome Maria Candler. Maria has had tremendous experience in the areas of being a life coach, also in the areas of working with the Enneagram. And for those of you that are familiar with the Enneagram, it is an area of exploration related to one's personality and how that evolves and changes and also connects with the world around us. I will leave it to Maria or another expert in that area to go more in depth with the personality component of the Enneagram. So I wanted to just kind of jump into our conversation. Our three topics that we discuss in January, February, and March of 2024 with Caring Conversations are gratitude, grace, and growth. So I wanted to start by the importance of why these topics are being brought to the table and why they're important for those facing a cancer diagnosis and their caregivers. So a lot of individuals don't know or not aware that when facing a cancer diagnosis, one often is experiencing what is called a medical trauma. So, a medical trauma, what is a medical trauma and how does it impact us? So, a trauma is a response to a life-threatening or horrific event that either one experiences themselves or maybe they witness someone experiencing, which therefore causes trauma as well. So in that traumatic event, that impacts us physically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. And again, this is in response to a life-threatening event or a significantly traumatic event. And I'll give you some examples of traumatic events. War oftentimes is associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. Also a car accident, a racial, sexual violence, physical violence, abuse. Also, medical traumas can relate to things such as a heart attack. COVID would be an example of a medical trauma, and obviously receiving a cancer diagnosis. These are just naming a very few. There are multiple areas, a diverse set of areas where one experiences symptoms related to a trauma. When it deals with a medical perspective, we then introduce that title of what is called a medical trauma. So when we are receiving that breast cancer diagnosis, or we are a caregiver for someone receiving a breast cancer diagnosis, we often experience symptoms related, or we can experience symptoms related to post-traumatic stress, which impacts us on a physical, emotional, spiritual, and social level. Today, we're going to be talking about the emotional, social, and spiritual levels. The physical levels are oftentimes addressed with our physical physicians, but they do interact with one another and impact one another. So let's talk about this idea of a breast cancer experience in relation to gratitude. So gratitude is this place where we hold space for what we are witnessing or accepting or seeing or feeling related to our life in connection with joy, satisfaction, happiness, an overall sense of, I have the things that I need. I have everything I need right here, and these are the things that I need. And remaining in that present moment is so crucial when we think of the idea of gratitude. So, this idea of, well, I've just received this extremely impactful diagnosis. How do I even connect with being grateful? How do I even connect to this idea of gratitude? First of all, we recognize that receiving a breast cancer diagnosis is something that is individual to each person. And their journey, or whatever word you would like to use, because we understand that journey might not be a word that works for everyone. You can use the word experience. You can use the word, you can just say, my breast cancer diagnosis. But each person's journey is unique to them. So, what one person can do to connect with these spaces of gratitude is not necessarily what someone else can do. Here's the other really important part and really important secret to this. Giving yourself, and we're going to talk about this later, giving yourself grace, knowing that you're doing the best job that you can. And if today is not the day where you can connect with a place of gratitude, that is okay. If today you are feeling angry or sad, and these are your overwhelming feelings, that is okay. One of the pieces is for us to just recognize that we are doing the best that we can with what we have in this moment in time, what we have been given. And knowing that our caregivers, the ones that are supporting us, are also doing the best job they can with what they have given this moment in time. And that's a piece of gratitude that connects to gratitude. But if we want to really say to ourselves, okay, but Melissa, I really want to be able to be present and connect with something each day, this place of gratitude, this place of hope, this place of what else is there besides what I am facing right now, then start small. It doesn't have to be something huge. It can be something very small. It can be, I am grateful that today, and this is a good example, today is 65, and there's this sense of warmth when I step outside my door. That's small. I am grateful that someone brought soup to my front door. I am grateful that today is not a day that I have chemotherapy. I am grateful that I woke up feeling okay from chemotherapy. I am grateful that I am recovering from my surgery faster than I thought I would. I am grateful for the support after my surgery. These things don't have to be huge revelations. They can be very small things that are actually just as impactful. So I really want us to sit with that for a moment, this idea of gratitude and this idea of gratitude in the space that works for us. And you're going to hear that a lot from me, the space that works for you. So let's move on to this idea of growth. So I want to first preface by saying growth from a trauma requires several things, but one of the most important things it requires is a feeling of safety. So if you have just been diagnosed and there's significant uncertainty and you have 5 doctor's appointments and you really don't know what direction everything is headed in, growth might not be your primary focus right now. And that is perfectly understandable. Again, showing up in the place that we need to be in, that we are in, and allowing that to be enough that we have to give right now. So, this idea of growth is, how do we face a traumatic event, journey, experience? And how do we then connect to other places in relation to that. Notice I didn't say better places, stronger places. I think those words really can lead us to believe that we're not enough, or we're not giving enough, or we haven't gotten there. So instead, thinking about other places, different places. So I'm going to give you a great example of this. When I received my breast cancer diagnosis years later, I was working with a therapist because from the very beginning of my cancer diagnosis, there was this fear of reoccurrence. And my fear of reoccurrence sometimes would be stronger, sometimes would not be as strong, but it was always present. And it probably always will be to some extent for me. And so I was working with a therapist on how do I still how can I still be focused on the present moment, on gratitude, and how do I connect with my life in the way that I want to connect with my life, given this fear that sometimes feels very paralyzing. And what we got to was she asked me like how I envisioned my breast cancer experience, and I envisioned it as a road, and there was life before cancer, life right after cancer, and life now. And she asked me where I was on this road, and I was like right here, maybe a little closer to over life after cancer, but not there. I was still here. And she said, "Well, why are you over here?" And I said, "Well, the people that I love, the people that I connected with, the people that the things I knew about myself, my identity, they're all life before cancer." And she said, "Well, I'm wondering why. I'm curious as to why life before cancer and life after cancer don't have this line that connects them to one another, this invisible string to where you can bring in pieces of both." And I said, "Well, I have this fear that follows me that I envision as this shadowy figure that follows me um, all of the time about fear of reoccurrence." And she said, "Well, where is it?" And I said, "Well, it's in between life after cancer and life before cancer and life after cancer." And so it's always chasing me. And I can't go backwards. I can't connect to those pieces because it's right there. And I just can't get there. And I can't and I'm running forward, but it holds me back. So I'm living in this kind of area that I don't know what to do with. So in my work, I realized I needed to create another road. I didn't need to dissolve the road that was there. I didn't need to wash it out or remove it or pave over it. I just needed to also create another road that could connect me to these 2 points that maybe fear didn't live on. Doesn't mean that fear wouldn't still be there, but maybe there was another space too that I could live in. I tell you this story because after cancer, oftentimes we feel that can we still have joy? Can we still have inspiration? Can we still connect with things? What if we can't connect with the old things? Can we still connect with things? Can we still be physically active? What about relationships? What about our future? We can build other roads. We just have to have the right tools, and we have to know where to build them. So if we need to take a moment, because that example could be very triggering from a fear-based perspective or just from talking about cancer. So if you need to take a moment, feel free to pause the video. So I want to welcome you back if you needed to take a moment, and if you're still with us, grateful that you're here. So this idea of growth. It doesn't have to be a large thing. It can be it can be a very small but mightily impactful thing that we do. So I'm going to give you an example of something to do. Maybe, like in my example, you can't run marathons anymore. Maybe you find a new sport called pickleball. It's a whole nother conversation that you love to do that also connects with the social aspect that you desperately need. And it's something you're doing for your health. It's a new road or a new island or a new ship, however you want to look at it. Or different rather than new. I try to stay away from the word new. Different. In addition to. Because if we use the word new, then that means our old life, right? And then again, we're not connecting all of the dots together. So if we say different or an addition to, or what if you can no longer work out in your yard, the yard's too big anymore, but you can do a square foot garden on your deck. Different. Still connecting to identity. Or what if your relationships don't look the way they did then? But maybe you connected with someone you haven't connected with in years, or maybe it's a different connection. Different. These are these tiny little spaces. These tiny little spaces where we can grow our branches like a tree. So if one branch falls off, the leaves fall, we grow a new branch. The water goes to a new branch. And then it blooms again. A different branch. I keep saying new, different. It doesn't mean that the root system doesn't still exist. It just means that we have this different growth that has popped up. So then we go into this place of grace. I view grace as the ability to say to ourselves, I am doing the best job that I can with what I have in front of me at this moment in time. My family is doing the best job that they can. My friends are doing the best job that they can with what they have in front of them at this moment in time. Grace is the recognition that we might not have all of the answers. We might not be able to do the things in the way that we envision or the way we want to or the way someone else wants us to. But we're doing them and we're doing them to the best of our ability. Grace is the idea of saying, I'm going to find self-love. I'm going to reflect on it and discover it. Even if it's just one thing I say about myself that I love and care for. It's caring for this small person that lives inside of us that needs to hear they're enough. So what I would like to do is end with this. Receiving a cancer diagnosis is not something that any of us ever expected, I am sure. Even if you have a family history, even if you thought possibly, it's still something that we don't walk around thinking about on a daily basis. And so giving yourself time to grieve, time to navigate this different world, time to love yourself and know that you are doing the very best job with what you have in front of you at this moment in time.